Hello and welcome. This is Matt Petrowski. I am the editor-in-chief here at ISO FileMaker magazine, and you're here to learn about FileMaker, so welcome if you're a new FileMaker learner. Today's video, we're going to be taking a look at the get functions and how we can actually take advantage of those. In fact, today, in today's current date with FileMaker, it is so cool to be able to use get functions the way that I'm going to show you how to use them. So let's switch to my desktop. And if you see me looking off to the sides, because I've got another monitor for looking at my video switcher and all those other things. Get functions. So quick little story. We don't want to bore you too much, but when I got started with FileMaker all the way back to FileMaker 2, technology came with thick manuals. You got like a really nice book and you had to flip through it. I had so many little sticky notes in that book that it was just crazy. I had to go through each page and read what all of the individual get functions would actually return. But in this video, what I'm going to give you is the quickest way that you can learn about most all of the get functions and how and why they are useful. So if you'd like to follow along, let's go ahead and do that. Now we've gone through all of the manage area, and we're going to be spending a little bit more time in the file menu, taking a look at the file options. I won't be spending time on all of the menus. Obviously, a lot of these are pretty obvious. You don't need me to tell you about open, etc., what have you. So the whole series of videos here is about learning FileMaker's environment. Now in order to do this, we're going to need a file. I'm going to choose a new solution. The dialog came up off on my other monitor. I'll open that up. I'll go to my desktop and I'll just call it get. You can call your file whatever you want. Now, for those of you watching this live, I'm taking a little bit of a pause here as I do things so that you can follow along, get that file up to speed. If you're watching this after the fact, after it's been recorded, then of course you can pause the video at any time in order to catch up with what we've got here. So let's take a look at our get functions. Now there are two ways that we can actually interact with all of the get functions. If you only have a copy of FileMaker Pro, then you're going to need to create a field in order to see the results of these values. Otherwise, if you're using a copy of FileMaker Advanced, I would highly suggest just simply using the data viewer. With the data viewer, what you're able to do is you're able to basically pre-test any calculation that you want. You do that in this area right here called watch. So if you're only using a standard copy of FileMaker Pro, I really suggest ask whoever, or if you're the person that can throw down the cash for it, get a copy of FileMaker Advanced if you really want to learn FileMaker Pro, because tools like this make it so much easier. Now, here's our calculation dialog box. We can add a watch variable, and that's what I've done right here, and we would be able to go to the get section. Now I talked a little bit about the calculation dialog box, and over here, if I move it to the side, we can see that we can actually move to this section right here. Oops, meant to stay focused on that, get functions. So those get functions, once we're in that area, we can see all of them right here. Now, as we scroll through all of these, one of the most difficult things that a new FileMaker learner will come across is, oh my gosh, there are so many different functions to learn. And that's true, there is. And it's just like learning a language. If you don't know the vocabulary, then you really can't express yourself in your application. So I'm going to give you in this video the quickest way to become familiar with what most all of these return. Also the best way to actually use them. Now what I had just mentioned is if you're using a copy of FileMaker Advanced. If you're not using a copy of FileMaker Advanced, then what initially came up on this file was the defined database. And if you watched my previous video on that, I really don't need to explain this dialog box. You should be familiar with what we have available here. We just haven't gone into the field options. Now I'm going to call this one example. You can call the field whatever you want. I'm going to make it a calculation field. And once I create that, FileMaker's calculation dialog box is going to come up on screen. So again, here I would be able to put all the get functions. Now here's the key with the get functions. The get functions, basically, they get you information about the environment. So let's switch to those get functions again. Let's just talk about a few of them. For example, we've got get account name. Well, when we took a look at our security and privileges and setting up our user accounts in the security area in FileMaker, when a person logs in, get account name is going to return that as part of something that I can use in a calculation or in my script or in a field, wherever you want to use it. We've got group name, extended privileges, privilege set, field contents, field name. Now I could read all of these for you, but that'd take a lot of time. I think what's going to be better if I show you the quickest way to actually view the results of all of these particular functions. Now there's a couple of ways that you can take advantage of these functions, and a newer FileMaker user, if you're that person, might be tempted to put all of these in this one calculation. Say for example, I want to see the get account group name. And then I also want to see the get account name. And I'm going to hit a return character, and maybe I don't know FileMaker yet. I know I can use the ampersand and click that, and that'll join two things together, and I can put the get account name, and then I could do it again. But when I go look at this calculation, what's going to happen is I'm not going to have returns in there. So FileMaker uses a special little character right here. It's called the pilcrow, and that will actually concatenate a return character into this list. So I'd be able to click this. I actually click 2 there. FileMaker won't accept this right now, because what you're basically saying, if I give myself some space here, and it's always good to use spaces. In fact, I'll give you a whole video about how to format your actual calculations. This may be too much, but let's read this. It says, I want you to get the account name, concatenate that to a return character, then this. Well, we're missing something. If we click the OK right now, FileMaker will tell us an operator is expected. Well, that's because we missed our other concatenator, so we need to concatenate right there. And FileMaker's putting in those extra spaces for me. But now FileMaker would accept this, and this might be a good way to go about this, but can you think about the amount of time that it would take you to actually go in and double-click all of those get functions just in order to see all of them? And all of their results, oh yeah, that would be just a hassle. That would be something that I really don't want to do, and I don't want you to do because you don't have to do it. So we're going to leave that there. And when we get to the topic where we're talking about fields and unstored versus stored and the index, we'll go into what's happening here. You'll have to bear with me on this particular example without actually getting into what's stored versus unstored. You're just going to have to follow along here. When I'm in browse mode and I'm looking at this data and I create it, I can see that it's giving me some information here, but I don't know what this information is actually representing. It just says admin. Well, I happen to know that that's the result of get account name. So I'm going to take the shortcut here in order to actually see everything about the environment. This is why you're here. This is the cool part of this video coming up. In FileMaker, there are 2 ways that you can take advantage of get functions. And newer FileMaker users, what they typically do is they will create a calculated field in order to go use those calculation values. Well, FileMaker's get functions are pretty unique because information about the environment is always available to you, and you don't have to use a calculation function in order to get access to that information. So instead of creating an actual field and using the get functions to see the environment, we're going to use the second of our 2 options for referencing the environment functions, these get functions. If we go into layout mode with Command L or Control L, up here under the View menu, or actually the Insert menu, excuse me, and down at the bottom, so we're on the Insert menu, and down at the bottom, we've got this ability to do this Insert Other Symbol. And hopefully that's not too close to my head there on the video. I'm not able to preview that. But we are going to select the Text tool. We're going to click that. We're going to click on the layout itself. I'm going to start to type a little bit of text. Now mine is actually doing this long bar thing. I don't know if yours actually does that. By clicking outside of this, it will accept that, and I can then drag this to make it longer. But this text block allows me to use that insert of other symbol. And let's go see what we have access to. We're going to go back up to insert. We're going to go to the other symbol option. We're going to click it, and this is what we're going to have. What I want you to recognize is that all of these are the same as the get functions. We just saw get account name, get account group name, we actually have all of the get functions available here to us. So we don't have to actually have a field in order to use or display these on the screen. So for example, if I said one of the popular ones is found count. Found count gives us back how many records there are. So what we're paying attention to here now is the fact that we can see that when something is put on FileMaker's layout, it uses these little double curly braces in order to inject the internal portion of the get function. So the get function looks like this. Normally, when we're using it, it looks like get found count. So basically all that's happening is this is getting replaced with those double brackets and this is getting double replaced. Well, FileMaker is not actually doing that. I'm just saying that's what happens when we use it here in layout mode. So let's add a few more. We're going to go back to Insert, choose Other Symbol, and choose Account Name. And we'll hit a return. Actually, we'll put Account Name above that one. And now let's go into Browse mode. So now we go into Browse mode. Hey, that's pretty cool. It's showing me the get account name is admin, and it's just returning a value of 1. Well, wouldn't it be nice to actually see what that returns? How about we just put account name equals so that it gives us the information of what we're actually going to see. And then we put found count equals. And so now what we're doing is we're giving ourselves an indication of what that particular get function is going to return. So we go into browse mode, and there we go. Account name equals admin, found count equals 1. Now here comes the coolest part of this whole video. I don't want you just to be a good FileMaker developer, and I don't want you to take the time to actually go up to the Insert menu, choose Other Symbol, and do that for however many times there are all of these symbols. So you can see the process right here. Hit Return, Insert, Other Symbol, scroll, hit the next one, hit Return. That is absolutely not what we want to do. As a technology user and as a developer, somebody who's aspiring or intermediate or going to be an advanced developer, we always ask ourselves, does this already exist somewhere? And the answer is typically yes when it comes to technology. Otherwise, you're the one creating the code and it's unique and specific to your solution. So we're going to use that, well, getting rid of all of the text actually deleted my text box, and I'm going to get rid of this field on the layout. Let's go ahead and add another text box. Now here's a cool trick about the text box. Notice that if I just click in a single location, FileMaker allows me to put the text in and start to type it out. You can also define the width of a text box. So if I know that I want a text box, which I just deleted that, I click the text tool and I just drag out. And when you drag out, you're actually defining the boundary of the text area of where you want to input text. So that's just a little quick tip right there. So getting back to that, it exists somewhere. I'm going to go over to Safari. Let's see if I can switch to Safari right now. And I taught you in the very first video in this series, if you want to go all the way back, you can go watch video 1. I taught you how to search the web for FileMaker's documentation. So I've already done that here. You can see that I did a Google search, searching for the keyword application version. Now that just happens to be a get function that I had off the top of my mind. I knew it would be found when I limit my Google search to FileMaker's site. So here what we have is we get the FileMaker 15 version of the help, we get the FileMaker 12 version, and here's the FileMaker 16 version. So that's the one I want. So I'm going to go to click to that particular item. Now here's the key thing. In the very first video, I told you how to actually download this from FileMaker's site. There's a link in the help where you can actually download this. I won't do it right here because I don't need to. I've got access to the web. If you want to have access when you don't have an internet connection, download FileMaker's help. So where do all of the get functions exist? Well, they're right here, of course, in FileMaker's own documentation. So here comes the really cool part. If I want to see all of the information about all of these, do it really quickly and put it on FileMaker's layout, then I am just going to copy all of this information. Now, if you're on Windows, I don't know if it will work in this fashion, but here on the Macintosh, what happens is Apple does a really good job of making a lot of applications work well with each other. So Safari, the browser here, if I click and I start to highlight all of this content and drag all the way down until I get to the bottom of the table, if I copy that to the clipboard, what happens is the Macintosh puts it in multiple formats, and one of those formats happens to be in the table format that all of this data already exists. So what I'm going to do is I don't have it open, I will open up Numbers. Numbers is the free application that comes on the Macintosh. I'll click New Document, I'll click double click to create a blank document. And because I copied it from Safari, when I paste now, notice that everything pastes in a table format. Ah, this is awesome. It already exists, go find it, just know how to get to it. And that's what you're learning in this video. So as I scroll this out, I don't need this column. So I'm going to select on this top column and I'm just going to hit delete. I don't want that. I don't need this function part, so I'm going to delete and get rid of that. This is pretty cool. I have all of my functions and all I need to do is actually convert these. So what I'm going to do first off is I am going to select everything. I'll get rid of these two columns up at the top, actually all of these first columns. I think I can delete those. Let's see, delete selected rows. There we go. So now what's cool is in this document, this empty numbers worksheet, and I think you could probably do this in Excel. I don't know if it'll paste into Excel. See, Safari and Numbers, both made by Apple, they work really well together. Internet Explorer, if you're on Windows, and Excel, I don't know. It really depends. Maybe Chrome might work. I haven't tried in other browsers. So if you don't actually have Numbers and Safari, you just have to try other things to see if you can get it to work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a quick find and replace. I think I can do that with a Command F or a Control F, which is typically finding and replacing in any environment. And what do I need to do? I just need to replace or find everything that is a get parenthesis and then replace that with those double marks. And I should be able to replace all of those. Let's see if I can do that in here. Is it going to do a replace all, find and replace? I'm trying to do that here. I don't know why. Maybe I need to select that. Find, get, replace, next. It's taking me to some other document. I don't know what's going on. But ultimately, if I can make this happen, and because I'm doing this live, that's the downfall of doing this live, my find and replace isn't actually working. And I need to find out why. My apologies of why this is not working. Clear recent searches. I don't know why this is not actually working. Hopefully it'll work for you. This is just a complete fail right here. But I'm going to show you and explain what I would actually do once I've got that find and replace. And probably what I'm going to do here is, since Numbers is failing for me, I'm going to take it to another application where I know I can actually use it. You'll have to bear with me. Numbers does do this. Unfortunately, it's just not working successfully for me live. I'm going to go into Vim. Apologies if Vim is a scary application. It's a way where you can do a lot of text editing and do some magic in it, where here I know I will be able to actually do my substitution. So what I'm going to do is you can ignore this if you're not going to use Vim. If you want to use a text editor, or if you can get the find and replace to work in Numbers, then I really wish it would have worked. It does work. I did the exercise before, and it wasn't working. So I'm going to find, here actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to implement a very confusing set of characters. I'm going to substitute everything with get with an opening double bracket and do that globally. If you want to learn this, for some reason, I apologize if you're a newer FileMaker developer. This is basically some Vim magicry, which is basically my find and replace. I'm doing it here in this application because Numbers is failing me. I'm shooting this live, and it's going to get me where I want to be, which is basically to replace all of that beginning part of the get with the opening parenthesis with the closing parenthesis. And so here I would be able to actually bring that back up and do the substitute again, except this time I'm going to substitute with the back paragraph. And I really wish this worked in Numbers. Maybe I'll be able to figure out after the fact why it works, and I'll record a post video and maybe post that. But here you can see what I've done is I basically took all of that content from FileMaker's documentation. I can now go paste it in. And that's the whole point of what I was trying to show you, which is really cool. Now, before I actually go into browse mode and see all of this content, What I'm going to do is I'm going to remove one of the particular items, and that's this one right here, this documents path listing. If you have a lot of documents in your documents folder, FileMaker will really have to chew on this a whole lot. So it's the one function that will, there are a few functions of the get functions that will list a lot of contents. This one lists the most if you have a lot of documents in your documents folder. The other ones are, for example, your network cards, if you have a lot of network cards, the current plugins, if you've got a lot of plugins, but we'll take a look at those. So get rid of that documents listing if you do have a lot of those. Now, one of the things we're going to do, as I click, you can see, I don't know if it's coming up on the video, my little spinning triangle. FileMaker is having to think about all of the information about all of these environment variables. So if you have a little bit of a slower computer, that's probably going to take a little while. I'm going to delete this footer. I'm going to select this header and delete that. That's going to make this come on screen. I'm going to resize this, or attempt to resize it. And let me do that over here in the inspector palette. I'm going to change the width here to something like 2000, and hopefully FileMaker will give me that prompt right there. Operation will cause objects to extend. Do you want to increase the size of the layout? Of course I do. I want you to do that for me, FileMaker. So there we have on screen all of our data right there. When I go into browse mode, what we get is all of the environment variables all right there for us. Now, what's our problem? Well, it's the same problem that we had when we were looking at the function itself, where we really don't know which one of these actually represent. And I'm not going to go in and try to do it in numbers because I'm really upset at numbers right now for not working for me on this live video, but I will find out, why it wasn't working. But what I would do is in numbers, and I have done this, and the cool thing is once you do this, you don't really need to do it ever again. And the reason I'm not just uploading the file and giving it to you, because as a FileMaker learner, you need to learn how to do this type of stuff, and doing it actually builds up your confidence. So over in numbers, what I would have done, if numbers was working, stupid numbers, is I would be able to actually select all of these once I had taken off the value. And I'm going to do it here. I'm going to actually do this and replace all of these. I'm going to do it really quickly here. So I'm going to replace all of these with nothing, and I'm going to then bring up the same thing and replace all of these with nothing. Again, sorry about the Vim and having to do that, but this is what I would have done. I would have put these values right here next to the values, so that what I had was I have the situation where I have the name of the item and then all of the items. Let's see if it'll actually work over here. I'm just going to get all of these. Now I have to remember I am off by 1 on all of these values. So if I get rid of these here in numbers and I delete this, we will achieve the result. One of the things that I did was I deleted on one of these, I've got to find it, the documents path. Oh, I have it in there. Everything's matching. Persistent ID. I thought I took out the documents path. I did take it out. Oh, I was looking at desktop path. That was my problem. Get documents path, documents. Document path listing. There it is. There's the one that I need to get rid of. That one particular cell, and I need to shift everything up. Sorry about the flow there. There we go. So now I should be able to select all of this. And again, the reason that I'm having you do this as well is you will hit the same situation that I hit, where something won't work and you'll have to figure out how to actually make it happen and give you all that information. But what we end up with as a result is we end up with, once FileMaker figures it out and does all of the calculation and goes into browse mode, we have a situation where we're able to see all of this data. Now, what would make this a little bit nicer? Well, let's learn more about doing that. I don't like that all of this information is all jagged here. I would like to be able to see each one of these lined up, so we're going to do that. Zooming out here and selecting this particular text block, we can actually put in, or what's already in this object, because I did it in the spreadsheet when I copied it, is tabs between the cells. So FileMaker's formatting will respect those tabs. All we have to do is tell it what do you want to do with those tabs. So in layout mode, we have an option where we can actually view our rulers. So if we turn on our view rulers, FileMaker is going to show the ruler up here, up on the top in layout mode. Well, now when I double click into any text box in layout mode, it shows the ruler, but it shows it for the width of the text box. And you can see that I have a lot of the same controls that I have in a Microsoft Word document or any word processing document. So what I'm able to do is, the one thing you need to know is that just like in Word or any other tool, there's a saying that I use: if you want it affected, it has to be selected. So if you can remember that, that's what you're going to do. You're going to select whatever you want to have affected. So in this case, I'm going to do a Command or a Control A to select all of the text in this block. Then in the ruler area, with the boundaries of my box, I'm going to click an insert of an actual tab character. Boom! That's cool. That just allowed me to align all of those items because I had them in a spreadsheet, copied them with the tab, and here's an even cooler part. I'm going to double click on this little icon and it's going to bring up FileMaker's little tabs dialog. Now the cool thing about the tabs dialog is that we can control whether it's a left, center, right, or align on tab, but we also have this nice option right here of a fill character. So for this particular tab object, I can fill any character I want, and I'm going to fill it with a period. I'm going to click apply, and I'm going to click OK, and then boom! Number 2 that's really good is we now have exactly what we want to have. We have a very clear and the easiest way, I would argue, way to understand and learn all of FileMaker's get functions, everything about the environment. So we go into browse mode and there we have it. Account extended privileges, the account name is admin, the modifier keys would be 16, which that doesn't apply really currently. Application architecture, the application version. Now is when we start to think, oh wow, I can make all kinds of determinations about FileMaker's environment when I'm actually doing things in FileMaker. For example, what is the current privilege set name? Oh, it's full access. If it is full access, what do I want to do? Do I want to take the user to a different layout? Do I want to hide something or do I want to show something? So once you take a look at all of these environment variables on your own, having followed these instructions, still upset at numbers, stupid application, you can actually add in really cool things to your database. And that's what we're going to wrap up with in today's lesson is I'm going to give you a function, a custom function, since we've already talked about custom functions in a previous video, that you can use that is the first custom function that I put in every FileMaker database. And it gives you a little bit of a clue in terms of how you can use all of these environment functions. Let's hide numbers, stupid application. And we're going to hide Vim, my editor, and we're going to go over to Safari. And this is a function that is available on the web. We'll take a look at the URL. Let me see if I can get this much wider so that you can actually go to it if you'd like to. We'll zoom in on that and we'll highlight it as well. So you can find this at github.com/FileMaker standards, FMP standards, blob. I'll also put it into the comments at the bottom so that you can just go straight to the function and copy it. There are custom functions, as we talked about in a previous video, all over the web. And this is one of the functions that I add to all of my different files. Now there is a little link when you go to GitHub right there that says raw. When you click on raw, what's going to do is it's going to load another web page, and this is basically just the raw plain text. So from here, I can do my Command or Control A to select all, copy this, go over to my FileMaker database, go to my Manage Custom Functions. Once I'm there, I can click New. I can paste in everything that I had copied, and I can call this what I had called it, which I believe up at the top here, it is called developer. Now, I'm not going to go in depth about this particular function, but suffice it to say, when we zoom into the bottom of it, we can see one of the things that it's actually using. It's using an evaluate, and we'll get into that at another time, but it is essentially using get account privilege set name. Now, if you're an intermediate developer or advanced and you want to know why am I using the evaluate, that's because FileMaker actually changed the name of the function somewhere throughout the course of FileMaker. So if this needed to work in FileMaker 11 or 12 when it was the old name, then I had to account for that. And so this is the current one, probably get privilege set name. So basically what we're saying is if it is full access, then that means that you're a developer. The only person that can get into a file is a developer. And here is the tip that we're going to leave you with today, because we're right on 30 minutes and I want to get to those questions. With the developer custom function, which uses the environment functions, anything that you want to put on screen that only you want to see as the developer when you're in browse mode, you can now use this developer custom function. So for example, if I put a big button on the layout and I call it close file, and I select this to do a single step and it's going to close the file. That's what I just added right there, a single step. If I don't want this to be visible, and let's make it a little bit bigger so we can see. If I do not want this to be visible to any other users except for people who are logged into the file as the developer, I'm going to hide it just for me as the developer. And this is now so simple because of these environment variables. And again, I use this all over in my FileMaker database systems. In the inspector, we're selecting the fourth area, the fourth tab, and as I collapse this, we're going to see the behavior, and in there we have this area, hide object when. Now this, we see this little pencil, which is the same thing as the specify, allows us to say, under what conditions do we want this to hide, or when do we want it to hide? We want to hide this when it's the developer, meaning the person has full access. No, not when it's the developer. We want to hide it when it's not the developer. So not is a function. It's an operator in FileMaker's calculation engine. And basically what we're saying, and we're also going to click this option of apply in find mode. What we have now is a situation where close file appears for us and we can click it and close it at any time because we're a developer. But if we were in browse mode, and users can't get into layout mode, then they would never see this button. Only we would see it for ourselves. So your takeaway for today is get all of the get functions in at one time and just take a look at them. It's the easiest way to learn all of FileMaker's available custom get functions. Anything that you want to do, for example, at the bottom of the screen or the top of the screen, you want to say, hello, admin, you're looking at 4 records and today's date is whatever. You can put all of that into text using these insert other symbols, which are FileMaker's get functions. Please don't create a calculation, and then use the environment functions in order to create custom functions or other settings that actually allow you to control the environment and what the user can and can't see, or what actually becomes a certain color using conditional formatting, which we'll get into later. All right, so we are at 33, and if you have any questions, this is going to be a good time to have it. Here's your trick too. If you followed along with this video and copied that developer function and put it in, if you want to see this actually disappear because you are the developer, go into layout mode, select that button, go to that little calculation we put, and just take this off. And just read what it says. What it's saying is hide object when developer. And we know that the custom function is when this person is logged in with full access, I want you to hide this button. So while it wouldn't be super helpful to you, it is cool to take that off and see how the button disappears and see that you have control over the whole of FileMaker's environment using these environment functions. Again, sorry about that numbers faux pas. I'll find out why it was broken, but we got to our end solution, and you can make that find and replace work in there. All right, so I am going to bring on the questions and see what we've got here. Maybe it didn't work with the space in your search. I have no idea why it didn't work. Get rid of the space. Perfect. HBH Group says that they're a Windows shop anyway with that. All right, so it looks like we don't have any questions specific to the get functions. If you do have any, you have just a few moments to actually put those into the chat. We got our solution done. I think I've shown you everything that I know about the get functions. Of course, there's all kinds of different things that you can use get functions for. Oh my gosh, without get functions, I don't know how we'd live in FileMaker with regards to being able to make determinations. Spend some time looking at those get functions, see how they might affect or impact your development, what you might be able to do. It also teaches you things about FileMaker. We've got layout access, layout name, the layout number, menu bar state, so many of the functions that deal with Windows, on how to do Windows. In fact, I just did a really cool article over at the magazine site where I create the more intermediate and advanced topics that I spent probably like half a day creating this article about these card windows, which is really, really awesome. So if you're interested in that, you can always check out the magazine site. That is available over at FileMakerMagazine.com. And relative to what you receive, it's a very inexpensive proposition on an annual basis, only $137. And I basically give you code and sample files where I've spent 5-6 hours of my time coming up with that work, and you just copy and paste it and put it into your solution. Although I do suggest that you actually take the time to learn it. All right, and let's see. So I actually didn't have that on screen, which there it is right there, in case you can't find it on the web. But I think that's going to bring this video to a close. Let's check if there is any more. We got a thumbs up on the chat there from USA Refurb. So thank you very much. Yes, please do give the thumbs up if you're enjoying these series of videos where I'm spending 30 minutes on a FileMaker topic. We're talking about the environment. Then we'll get to the data and all of those things. And then 15 minutes on question and answers about that topic. Feel free to tune in. Or if you'd like to be notified because this is not within your time zone, of course, click on the subscribe or click on the little thumbs up and give me a thumbs up. So I think that's going to wrap for this video, and we'll put that up on screen. It's going to come up, the subscribe right here, and then the next video in the series, as soon as I do that, is going to be right here. And otherwise, much luck and happy file making. Till next time, see ya.